welcome to another edition of Tech Tuesday presented by Delta Media Group, where we put the fun in functionality. So today we are going to take a look at how you can set up a domain to attach it to your website through the DeltaNet. Now we do have another video that goes into the specifics of how you can actually purchase a domain through the DeltaNet, and the nice thing about going that way is that all the configuration is all done for you. So all you do is go in and purchase the domain, and then it's all set up and configured and ready to run. But there are many instances where you may have a domain that either you already purchased through a third party or that you buy through another registrar like GoDaddy, anything like that. And so we'll put this video together to teach you how to go ahead and set those up so they point to your website. Specifically, we are going to focus on GoDaddy interface-wise for this, so you'll see the process specific to GoDaddy. The principles are the same no matter what your domain registrar is, but the interface will be different. So just keep that in mind as we go through this one. Now, first off, in order to set your domain up, we're going to go to the domain settings page. So I can do that by just clicking on the gear here in the top, and we can narrow this down to our domain settings. There we are. Now I could also just type domain or domain settings up here, and it would come up as one of the results, so that would be another way to get there. But either way, it will take you to this page. So from here, in order to set up a domain we already own, we're going to go down here and click on Set up a domain I own. There we go. Now the first thing we have here is to put in our domain. Now keep in mind, as per this note down here, we want just the domain here, so not the www, so we don't want, for example, that is not what we want. What we want is just the domain, so that is everything before that. So right there, something dot something. So something.com or .net, or in this case .dev, .org, depending on what domain you purchased. So you just put your domain in there. Now next, you have your confirmation email address. So this is where the setup instructions and ultimately the confirmation of your domain being set up, where that will be sent. It'll populate with your public email address automatically, but you can change this to something else if you do want that notification to go to a different email address. So once you have that filled in, we're just going to click Submit. Give it a minute to think about it here, and it says that it is now submitted for processing, and it has followed up with some instructions for us about how we can proceed. So what all this is for is it's giving us instructions on how we can go in and verify our ownership of the domain. So what we need to do is go into our domain registrar and put in this record in order to verify that we do have control of this domain. And that allows our system to validate it automatically. So we'll take a look here. Finish processing this domain, log into your main registrar, find the interface used to enter new DNS records, create a new Txt record, and enter the following record or following validation record. Wait for the confirmation email, which may take up to 12 hours. Or you can return to the domains page and check it. So let's take a look here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this because I know I'm going to need that. So we'll just right click and copy, or Control C or Command C, depending on the device you're using. And we'll go ahead and go over to our GoDaddy account and show you how to put that record in. So I happen to have it in another tab. Now, when you first log into GoDaddy, you'll be looking at a screen similar to this one. It'll kind of drop you on a like a default screen, depending on how much of your account's set up and what products you have through GoDaddy, all that. So what we can do to get to our domains is just click up here on this icon and then go down to Domains. Now I have a few domains in here, but we're going to go ahead and pick out the one that we're actually trying to set up, so that's this wolfarth.dev. So I'm going to click on these three dots here, and I'm going to go to Manage DNS. So this will allow us to put in DNS records for this domain. So there we are. Now here's our default records. Now, as per the instructions on this page here, we want to create a Txt record, and we want the value to be this. So we're going to go over here to our domain manager. We're going to add the record type is going to be Txt, so we have that selected. The host is going to be just an @ sign because this is just for the root domain. And then the Txt value is what we copied from the other page. So I'm just going to paste in that whole verification record there. And for TTL time, you can leave it on an hour. You could turn that down a bit, but it's not going to make a huge difference when it comes to getting this all set up. Either way, you're going to have a little bit of wait time. So we have all our record in here. Now I'm just going to click Save. And now you can see here that our record has been added. So it has a 1 hour TTL time, so basically what that means is our servers are going to look for this record to see if it's in place, and if it is, we'll know you verified the domain. However, our system has checked for it right away, so it hasn't gotten a result, so it's going to be an hour before it gets new information, basically. So there you have it. We have our validation record in. So at this point, you're looking at waiting probably roughly an hour before the system will be able to validate that domain. It's not a bad practice to sit down, and it says here it can take up to 12 hours. So it's not a bad idea just to give it till the next morning. But to see whether or not that has worked, you can just go back to your domain setups or domain setup page or domain settings page in the DeltaNet, and you can see whether that domain has been validated. Now, before we go back to that page and take a look, I just want to point out that we do have this note here also. So the idea is that once the domain has been verified, you're going to go into your domain and you're going to change the name servers to ns1.deltagroup.com and ns2.deltagroup.com. Now, you also should have received this via email, so you should have an email that has this information in it also, so you don't have to worry about losing it. So now we'll go back up here, click on Domain Settings to go back to our Domain Settings page. And as we go down here, we can see it is pending approval. Now I'll click on Validate because I just added that record. Error validating the domain. So it's not finding that record yet is what it comes down to. Now once that record is in, this will validate automatically. So one other thing to point out about this, now I'll go in and show you how to change the name servers, because once you go to this page and see the domain is validated, that's when you'll go in and change your name servers. One very important thing to point out about this is that if you do have any email that uses this domain, so for example, if I had harley@wolfarth.dev, that means there are some additional records that I'll have to put in place on our end before I change the name servers in order for my email through this domain to continue working the way it always has. So it's very important that if you do have email set up through this domain and you don't know anything about MX records or how you can set that up or transfer those over to us, then contact our support team at support@deltagroup.com or give us a call and we can walk you through that and help you out with that whole process. So the only reason I don't want to get into it in too much detail in this video is because it is very specific and it can differ based on who your email host is. So there are a lot of different kind of one-off pieces there, so it's best just to contact support and talk it through if you're not comfortable doing this. The other thing I will add about this page is that if for whatever reason you didn't get those instructions or you didn't see them or go through them on the previous page to enter the TXT record and all that, you can click this button to have it email you the instructions again. Alright, so now let's pretend that it is the next day and we've gone back to this page and we see it is no longer pending approval, this is approved, and we don't have any email through this domain, so we're just ready to get it pointed to our website. What we'll do to do that is we'll go back into our GoDaddy account, and we are on exactly the same page. So again, we'll go through the process again so you can see it. I'm going to go up here, go to Domains, and then I'm going to take the domain or choose the domain that I'm setting up for my website. I'm going to click on the three dots, go to Manage DNS, and now when we scroll down, we can see that there is a section for name servers. So what I'll do is I'm going to click on Change. There we go. Now we want to connect your domain to a website you've built or enter your own name servers. In this case, you want to enter your own because we know what those are. And the name server one is ns1.deltagroup.com. And the second is ns2.deltagroup.com. And then we're going to click on Save. So there we go. Now it's going to give us a warning. We want to consent to the name server change and continue. And there we are. Now at this point, we are all done. The configuration is done. However, you probably won't see the domain going to your website right away. Technically, it can take 24 to 48 hours for a name server change to propagate. And what that means is basically the rest of the internet doesn't know I've changed these yet. So it can take a little time. It is typically pretty fast with GoDaddy. So GoDaddy in particular, usually within an hour or so, the change will have taken place, but there are a lot of domain registrars that can take much longer than that. And again, even GoDaddy can take longer. So just keep that in mind. There's not necessarily a problem unless you have gone 24 to 48 hours and it's still not working properly, in which case, feel free to contact our support team and we can go over it in detail and figure out what the issue is. So there you have it. That's all there is to it. So now if we go back over here, now if I reset this page because it wasn't validated yet, it's not really going to do anything for me. But once you have completed that process, so this showed up as validated, you went and changed your name servers. When you look back here, you'll actually be able to purchase SSL at that point. So if you wanted to add a HTTPS certificate to your domain, which we suggest that you do, you'll have an option here to purchase that. So keep in mind, anything in this column here is related specifically to the SSL or the HTTPS certificate for that domain. So if you see anything in here that says error contact support, that doesn't necessarily mean there's something wrong with your domain. It just means that the system can't set up the certificate for some reason. Generally, that is because that domain has not yet been pointed at our name servers. So what you may well see is after this is validated, this spinning wheel won't be here anymore. You won't have this validate button anymore. But if it is validated and you haven't changed the name servers yet, it'll probably show an error in this column, and it'll show that until your name server change is made and propagates. So there you go. That really is all there is to it. So once everything's all propagated, that domain will point at your website, and everything should work exactly as you need it to. Now, before I kind of wrap up this video, I'm just going to add one more piece, just a basic understanding of how domains work. So you can tune out at this point if you don't want to get too in the weeds with it. But what I wanted to mention is that the way a domain works is you purchase the domain, and that domain belongs to you. So if you've gone to GoDaddy, that is your domain. Now, once you change the name servers, you're not giving us ownership of that domain. It's still yours. You're just giving us control of the domain. So by changing the name servers, you're saying that we now determine, like Delta Media Group now determines what your domain does. But you still own it. So you can log back into your GoDaddy account at any time, and even though all these records you've entered here, with the exception of the name servers, no longer apply because we now have control of your domain, you could go back to these name servers and change them to something else, thereby pulling control of the domain away from us and back to you or to whoever else you want to. So don't look at this as if, when we say you're giving us control of the domain, just keep in mind that you still have ownership of it. And you can see now that I've updated this, it says the DNS record information doesn't matter anymore because the name servers aren't managed by GoDaddy. Down here it shows where the name servers are, and if I did want to pull control back to myself, I would just click on change. I'll use GoDaddy's name servers and click save. And that's all there is to it, and then you would wait for that change to propagate just like it did the first time, and then you would have control through GoDaddy or full control of your domain through GoDaddy again. So there you go. Now, as always, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to send an email into support@deltagroup.com or give us a call, and we will be happy to walk you through domains or DNS or anything else in the DeltaNet that your heart desires. So thanks a lot for joining me, and I will see you again next week.